Right, 1929 Triumph single cylinder 500 Model N De Luxe. Customer brought it in, said he was riding it and it all got smoky and started slowing down and all your usual bits and pieces, you know. So we pulled the engine. On looking at it, there's a lot of damage to the engine. Sweet little bike. The other thing we've noticed is the headstock, look, should be ball bearings in there. And a lock pinch bolt through there, but that's all gone twang. All the ball bearings have fallen out somewhere. Yep. So don't think I'd want to be riding it like that, but clearly he didn't mind. So that's got to be addressed, machined up on the lathe and the mill. Right, so what you have, right, you've got your tube running up through here, yeah? Yeah. But that nut should hold it down on a fine thread in there, and there should be a clamp bolt on there, but all we had was that. So that goes in one side and hits the round tube. The round tube goes up through there, yeah? Yeah. So Robin made one yesterday on a milling machine. So we've got the other side now, so that will clamp up, see? So you just put a bolt through it, just clamps that up when you've got all that compressed down to where you want it. My fear is that the thread's possibly gone on the top of the headstock tube because for some reason it's popped up. But we've got to get it down again enough to get this out the way, probably take the bars off, work out what size ball bearings it needs, and then reload it all back up, okay? And then you can put your clamp bolt on. But these are what's called girder forks. They're springers on a Harley, yeah? Yeah. So you've got the front leg, the rear leg is solid on a Harley Davidson. Yeah. Front leg goes up and down, yeah? These are what's called girders. They're springers, these are girders. Now the way it works is, that and that, you've got a solid fork, yeah? So they do that, like a parallelogram, yeah? Okay. So it's pivots there, pivots there, pivots there, pivots there. You can see that one's at that angle, that one's at that angle, so that's all popped up out of line. So you've got to get all that back down, work out what size ball bearings you need, but realistically you need to loosen everything off so that all of this will move. Probably put some kind of strap on it here to pull it all back together, but until I've got this out, handlebars off, because you've got to flip this bit over to put the ball bearings in because they'll never hold, and you've got to work out what size ball bearings you want, yeah? Okay. So that's a little strip down on that when we get round to it, and then get all that compressed back up. Apart from that, it generally, all the wheel bearings feel all right. It's such a basic bike, there really isn't a lot to it, you know? Strange carburettor on it. You've got a double-barreled carburettor, so that sits on the inlet. There's no needles in it. It's called a semi-automatic carburettor apparently. So you've got two sliders, 1, 2. So one's throttle and one's choke. You don't have a twist grip, that's your throttle. So when you're riding it, you accelerate like that. Okay. That's your choke. That's your front brake. That's your decompression lever. That's your advance and retard lever, yeah, on your ignition timing. That's your clutch, which all needs adjusting up. And that is an oil pump. They're called what you call a total loss oil system. But the way it looks to me is, that's your oil feed, goes into the engine, yeah? Yeah. Now if it's over oiling, I think, well, the way that pump looks is you pull that lever and it sucks oil back out the engine into there. So perhaps when you're riding it, every 10 minutes you give it a few pumps or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but we've got a book coming so we can have a looky, see what's going on with it, yeah?
Bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, strange, isn't it?
What's the hardest thing about working on a bike of this age?
The quirky anomalies, I suppose, of what they did in the 20s, yeah? I mean, an engine's an engine. Total loss oiling system, because you've got a little pump on the side as well. You probably hand pump it to get oil in the bottom end, then start it, and then it will just suck through what it wants. But if it becomes overloaded, yeah, then I'm guessing you use that lever to suck it back out. I'm not 100% sure, because you've got a bevel drive in there, drives a rod which goes through there, drives the oil pump, very small oil pump, but you've got a sight glass, a big sight glass there. Can you see that says dry? Okay, so I'm guessing if you look, you're riding down the road on your bone shaker, you look down, if you can see dry,
It's not a good
it's
sign.
not good. So you either pumps oil in, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. So yeah, it's obviously a strange oiling system, which we will work out. Obviously, do some research, but we'll get it. Right, engine wise, right, drive side casing. When Robin took it apart, basically, the casings went donk.
Oh.
But if you look here, that is cracked all the way around there.
Yeah.
That oil seal looks like a blind Hercules bashed it in there. The casings, when you put them together, see that?
Yeah.
So everything's under strain. When you do that up, all that'll do is put stress on everything. So we're hoping it's just pivoted on these two. You have to load it up in the milling machine and face it off.
Yeah.
The issue is how true is the crankshaft. So small end, which is the small end of your conrod, yeah, that should be a press fit, not a press with your finger fit. Looking on the parts that we've found, it should have a 17mm gudgeon pin. This is 16mm.
Yeah.
So clearly I would say it's the wrong piston, because the other pictures we found, it had 3 rings, but they're all on the top, no oil scraper on the bottom, yeah. So possibly the wrong piston. Gudgeon pin's worn. You will find a gudgeon pin, you just, you know, do a search for a 16mm gudgeon pin and you'll find one.
Yeah.
It's whether it's long enough or whether you can, well, you can cut it down, but that's worn out. So when that was in there, and that's in there, put it on the worn bit, that's too loose, miles too loose.
Yeah.
So what it's probably done is, because that's loose in there, they get splash fed from underneath, that's rotated, so your oil holes don't line up.
Yeah.
So it'll just burn it out. Next,
Oh no. Yeah, okay.
big end's worn. Can you see that movement in there? Yeah, see that? Okay. We found a place that does oversized rollers, but it's very hard to measure. So basically you buy your biggest oversized roller you can find and you remount the bottom end of the conrod,
Yeah.
or hone it out. Next thing, this should be straight. See it doing that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah? And if you look at it that way,
Yeah.
see it doing that? So that is putting strain on everything again. Let's find a straight edge. I mean, this has got to be, you can bend conrods, you can straighten them because they're only very soft, but see, that doesn't look too bent on that angle on the face at the top. It is, but it's not as bad as it looks. So what you have to do is you machine up something that fits that nice and tight, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? You put that on a straight surface, and you machine up something that fits that nice and tight. You measure from side to side, yeah?
Yeah.
So then you can straighten it if it needs straightening, and then you can look down, and if you've got any twist in it, which you can do just literally by putting a foot long bar in there, clamp that in the vise and just bend it. They do bend, they're only cast iron. The trouble is, it's finding parts for a 1928. I mean, somebody's probably got a drawer full of the bloody things, but you try finding them. It's one of those situations, you know.
Yeah, when I was asking how hard is it working on these, it's finding the parts.
It's finding the parts, yeah.
Doesn't that weaken the metal at all when you straighten it?
Nah. It's cast iron, it's very malleable. Well, it's brittle, but you can bend them.
Okay.
It might be forged steel. It probably is forged steel, but so basically you've got to get new bearings for that. Got to get a small end for that. Got to get a gudgeon pin that fits the piston. The piston to bore tolerance is within tolerance. That's not bad at all. So that's one good thing. The casting one, you don't have a cylinder head. You just have a barrel with a head cast into it.
Yeah.
2 big caps there to get the valves out. Okay, so you've got valve guides in there, these pieces here, which I'm hoping I'll press out. If they're machined in, then what you have to do, if that's machined as a lump, you have to remount these and get bigger stem valves made. So you're talking about sort of quite major engineering on some of it. The way the valves work, you don't have a retainer and collet, you just have one of these pushes through, yeah? That's it. So that holds in there. Now these two are different. That one had double valve springs on it. That one had single valve springs on it. That keeper is different from that keeper. That's got a flat retainer. That's got a disc retainer. So all of this we can make if needs be, but it's just very labour intensive, you know.
Yeah.
Whether the valves are right or wrong, I have no idea. I mean, they're clearly not matched valves by any way or form. Quite a lot of play in the guides there.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of play in the inlet. It's getting valves made is a ball ache. No two ways about that. And getting ones made with a slot in the bottom like that is an even bigger ball ache. You might be able to match valves somewhere online and make these to be collet retainers. You machine a tapered hole in there, yeah, and your valve has a slot in it. You put that on there and that fits in your taper there, and the valve spring holds it all together. Not too worried about the gudgeon pin, small end, big end. Not too worried about straightening the conrod. Got to machine the cases back so there's no rock in them, yeah? Try and find out what's square, what isn't. See, that looks fairly straight across there. So you just don't know where it's bent. So you've got to...
Definitely bent somewhere.
That's riveted on. Okay, so that side is riveted on here. So there's nothing you can do with that. That's riveted on. So there's nothing you can do with that. That pin, big end pin, is riveted on from that side. So the only movement you've got is on that flywheel going back on there. With that all clamped back together, if that isn't true from there to there, it doesn't matter what you do with that, it ain't going to work.
Yeah.
It's just going to probably crackle that weld again, you don't know. So it's a suck it and see job, but the first thing I've got to do, ring the customer. He might say, well, it worked before, just put it back together.
But it is a ticking time bomb if you do that.
Oh Christ, yeah, it'll go wrong, yeah.
So possibly a bit of fabrication coming up?
Possibly a bit of fabrication. You don't know with people. You might say, oh, I've got a spare engine, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you just don't know. But your main issue with that, crankcases, is the welding. See, that's got a huge gap at the bottom. So when all that's clamped up, doesn't matter how straight that crank is, on those big roller bearings, if you clamp that up, it's going to force the casing somehow. So that's your crack line there, all the way around, yeah. I would say possibly that has been welded before, but with the cranking, when we were doing that, you can see that opening and closing.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. It needs addressing. It might be better to clamp it all up with the cranking situation and then weld it up. That might hold it truer, you know. Trying to make the best out of a bad egg, really.
But it was running.
Yeah, he said it was running, yeah.
These bikes, they just keep going, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to pop that oil seal out. You don't know when they've pressed that bearing. If that bearing's gone in pissed, and then you just tightened it and rode it, it will just crack it. I've got a feeling it might be better to true the crank up in the lathe, bolt it all together, relieve that crack, bolt it all together, and then possibly weld it all up. It's one of those. It's a bit of a weird one, but without talking to the guy, you can't just go ahead with things like this, because this could be like a lot of money. So we need to have a chat with him and see exactly where he wants to go with it, you know. So small end bush we can machine, conrod we can straighten. We found somewhere that does bigger roller bearings. Valves could be an issue. It's whether those valve guides are pressed in, because you don't want to start trying to bang them out if it's cast into it.
No.
So it might be better off trying to find something. Because all you do is you find something with the same valve head size. I mean, they're knackered anyway, to be perfectly honest with you. If you see that ridge there,
Yeah.
Yeah, they've had it. Oversized valves and maybe machine up some collets, or see that should fit.
Blimey.
Because all of that's all just rattling and banging around, you know. Even that's wrong. Because when all this was together, that was like that, that goes like that, and that should sit square. Basically, when it was all together, on the engine, it was like that. So nothing's right on it, nothing. I'm sure you could probably buy valves by size. So that might be a way around it, putting modern valves in it and getting some different keepers and things like that. Because everything modern will have dimensions and stuff, you know.
Interesting project.
Yeah, a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly.
So it's do a bit more research today, I think, and then do those front forks, get them in, and then have a chat with a guy and see where he wants to go with it, you know.
Yeah, definitely.